Israel says initial findings suggest delivery drivers plowed into a crowd of Palestinians during an aid distribution near Gaza. Hamas blamed the casualties on Israeli gunfire. Both President Biden and former President Trump are visiting the U.S.-Mexico border today. What's on their agenda and what are their locals saying? NTD's Arian Pazdar brings us live updates from Eagle Pass, Texas. President Biden's visit to the southern border marks his second appearance since his presidency. Trump says if elected, he'll issue mass deportations. We speak with a border security expert from the Heritage Foundation about the impacts of these twin visits. New York's Attorney General Letitia James sues the American subsidiary of the world's biggest beef producer over false marketing claims. She's accusing the company of lying to the public about its carbon footprint. The defense secretary was in the congressional hot seat today, explaining to members of Congress the details why he failed to tell the president about his recent hospital stay. Today, lawmakers are tackling the issue of electric vehicle fires. The fires are much hotter, more difficult to put out, and deadlier than gas-powered car engine fires. President Biden taking action to protect Americans' personal data. A new executive order seeks to prevent hostile nations like China from getting access to Americans' biometrics information, finances, and more. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Jack Bradley. An Israeli government spokesperson said initial findings suggest delivery drivers plowed into a crowd of Palestinians during an aid distribution near Gaza today. Earlier in the day, Hamas-controlled health authorities in Gaza claimed Israeli soldiers opened fire on people waiting for aid. The terror organization said 104 Palestinians were killed and 280 were wounded. The war in Gaza began when Hamas sent fighters into Israel on October 7th, killing around 1,200 people and seizing more than 250 innocent hostages. Hamas says 30,000 people have been confirmed dead in the enclave since then. The terror group doesn't distinguish between civilians and combatants when reporting these casualties.
You can surely see this in some of the videos that the IDF have distributed. At some points, the trucks were overwhelmed and the people driving the trucks, which are Gazan civilian drivers, plowed into the crowds of people.
President Biden addresses the deadly Gaza food line incident today. That's just before heading to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Do you still expect a ceasefire is possible by Monday, sir?
Hope springs eternal. I was on the telephone with the people in the region. I'm still, probably not by Monday, but I'm hopeful.
Gaza City, more than 100 civilians were killed.
We're checking that out right now. There's two competing versions of what happened. I don't have an answer yet.
Are you worried that that will cause cases negotiations?
I know it will.
Biden and former President Donald Trump are both scheduled to be at the U.S.-Mexico border today. And Trump is reportedly set to visit Eagle Pass. NTD's Arian Pazdar is on the ground in Eagle Pass, Texas right now. Arian, what's the situation over there?
That's right, Jack. We are in Eagle Pass, Texas right now, which, as you might know, is right on the border with Mexico. So behind me, you can actually see Mexico. More importantly, you can see Shelby Park, which is behind this fence right here. Former President Trump is supposed to be here at Shelby Park today. Now, we haven't seen him yet, but as soon as he arrives, I'm going to let you guys know.
And Arian, what do we know about Trump's visit so far? Are there any details on his trip, and what is he expected to do down there?
Well, in terms of details, Jack, we now know that Trump is supposed to outline a plan on how to secure the border. That's what his campaign said in a statement today. Now, if we could zoom into the park a little bit, you're going to see that they actually set up a stage in there. The stage is where former President Trump will most likely give a speech today. Another thing his campaign said today is that they are now considering this entire area here to be a crime scene. They say that's because a lot of deadly fentanyl and a lot of dangerous criminals entered the U.S. right here.
Yeah, that's right, Arian. In terms of dangerous criminals, Multiple violent crimes allegedly involving illegal immigrants are making headlines this week. For example, the nursing student in Georgia that was just killed. How does that affect Trump's visit?
Yeah, I think that's a big issue, Jack, to be honest. And I think that the fact that both Trump and Biden are at the border today just goes to show how big of an issue the immigration crisis has become and how much Americans care about it now. And I think that's partly because of these attacks you just mentioned. Now, last night I spoke to some of the residents here in Eagle Pass, and I want to show you what one of them told me about the fear he has of potential attacks against him and his family. Take a look.
I had to build a big wall behind my house because they used to walk through my land, you know. Especially when your kids are playing outside the house, you know, you don't know who's going to come by, who's going to walk through, you know.
Well, Arian, thank you very much for that insight there, and I know you'll keep us updated. Will Trump and Biden's border visits today lead to any meaningful change? Now, I'm joined by Simon Hankinson, an immigration expert, to discuss how cities are dealing with this issue, particularly sanctuary cities, and what can be done to fix it. Simon Hankinson, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Border Security and Immigration Center. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, it's Biden's second trip to the border since he took office here. Critics of Biden's visit to Brownsville, Texas, have said that illegal immigration at this location has calmed down in recent months and shifted elsewhere to more migrants are crossing out of other parts of the border like Eagle Pass, Texas, where Trump will be today. Now, are we likely to see anything meaningful come from these visits?
No, I think this is electoral season theater. I think Biden carefully chose Brownsville because it's a very quiet sector. So there's going to be pictures of him talking to Border Patrol and looking interested. But there's not going to be pictures of hundreds of illegal immigrants pouring into the United States, bust all over the country. You're more likely to see that at other places, including Eagle Pass, where I was last year.
As far as who's coming over the border, we've seen over 100 people on the terrorist watch list come through recently in recent months. Now, other recent border crossers have been committing violent crimes like the brutal murder in Georgia of a nursing student and the beating of 2 New York police officers recently. What will happen if this border crisis continues?
Well, there's just a predictable crime wave. Obviously, immigrants, illegal immigrants in particular, commit crimes at rates that are probably proportional to the size of the population. I would say slightly higher, given that they're more male and they're younger than the typical American. So over time, you're just going to see an increase in murder, robbery, violence of all kinds in towns and cities across America. So this is just a predictable tale of the mass illegal immigration that we've had over the past few years.
And many sanctuary cities, blue cities, are seeing a lot more of these illegal border crossers because they're being shipped there by some other states. Now, these shelters are at full capacity. Like in New York, the mayor, Eric Adams, has shifted his position, saying that illegal immigration is going to destroy the city and saying that the city should work with ICE to deport illegal immigrants who commit repeated crimes and change their sanctuary laws there. What's being done to help this situation?
Well, I mean, how is that in any way an unusual thing for a mayor to say? Of course, they should be working with federal agencies to deport people who have committed violent crimes or property crimes in New York City and the state of New York. So I think what we're seeing is a slow sobering up of big city mayors who have made a lot of promises. They've talked about sanctuary cities. They've talked about immigration in very theoretical terms and sort of global moral terms. And now they're saying that there are practical aspects to making a promise to the entire world that you can house them and feed them and clothe them and that you can prosecute them if they commit crimes.
Trump said if elected, he would issue a mass deportation. Is that possible?
Well, you can't deport everybody at once. There are 400,000 convicted criminal aliens in the United States with removal orders. In other words, people who should be deported. So you have to start somewhere, one by one. You start with the most dangerous. You make sure that you get people out of jails and into the deportation process, and you work your way through the list. And also you close the open borders so that we don't keep adding to that list.
And now, as for Biden, he says that Congress needs to take action, and Trump's rhetoric has actually further progressed this border crisis. What's your take on that?
I think blaming Trump 3 years into the Biden administration for a problem that the Biden administration created by ending the programs that Trump had been using to keep the flow to a manageable level is just pure politics, and it's just wrong. Asking Congress for more money is also disingenuous, because we know that that money, 95% of it, would go to bringing in more illegal aliens and moving them around the country and paying for their housing and medical expenses and so on. And it would not go to securing the border. So that's just a flat out lie that he's repeating because he's looking like electoral peril is in his future.
What could Biden do right now to help stem this tide of illegal immigration?
He would just have to go back to the playbook of all the things he undid in his first week in office and just do them again. Safe third country agreements, remain in Mexico, keep building barriers across the border to make it impossible for people to just walk across, end catch and release. There are a whole bunch of legal reforms to the asylum system and to immigration law that could be done. So he knows, or his staff know exactly what to do. These are deliberate policies they just didn't make.
Simon Hankinson, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Border Security and Immigration Center. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you.
And we'll have more later on Biden and Trump's border visits. Join Tiffany Meyer at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific for NTD Evening News. GOP frontrunner for president Donald Trump just got a break in his civil fraud case. The judge granted some of his requests regarding the penalties he faces. But the judge also upheld Trump's $454 million civil fraud penalty while he appeals. As of yesterday, the court is allowing Trump to seek loans from banks to secure a bond. Trump's lawyers have until March 25th to secure a stay, which pauses the fine while they appeal. The fraud case against the former president and other members of the Trump organization was brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. James argues that the defendants defrauded banks by inflating their assets to secure loans. Now, Trump denies this and claims that the trial is politically motivated. The Supreme Court has decided to rule on Trump's presidential immunity claim in his federal election case, further delaying a trial here. The court expedited the case yesterday and will hear arguments at the end of April. A lower court ruling against Trump was put on hold until the matter is decided. Meanwhile, Trump has just appealed an Illinois judge's ruling to remove him from the ballot. That's after the state court ruled his actions at the January 6th Capitol breach constituted engaging in an insurrection. And New York's Attorney General has beef with the world's largest producer of beef. Letitia James is suing the American subsidiary of the JBS Group, as she alleges that the company misled consumers with a false marketing campaign about its environmental impact. James says the beef producer is not being truthful about its claims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from its plants by 2040. James alleges that JBS promoted false claims about its efforts to be better stewards of the environment to capitalize on consumers' increasing desire to make environmentally friendly choices. She's asking the court to have the company end its net zero by 2040 environment marketing promotion and hand over all ill-gotten gains earned by allegedly misleading the public about their business practices. Now, if JBS is found liable, this would also include fines of at least $5,000 per violation. Lack of transparency, failure to inform his boss, and who knew exactly when Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin relinquished his duties during his hospital stay in December. Those were among the questions members of Congress were asking Austin during his testimony today. Austin, who went public before today to discuss his absence during treatment for prostate cancer, says he takes full responsibility for not following proper protocol.
There was never any lapse in authorities or in command and control. At all times, either I or the Deputy Secretary was in a position to conduct the duties of my office. But we did have a breakdown in notifications during my January stay at Walter Reed, and that is sharing my location and why I was here. And back in December, I should have promptly informed the President, my team in Congress, and the American people of my cancer diagnosis and subsequent treatment. Again, we did not handle this right, and I did not handle it right. As you know, I've apologized, including directly to the President, and I take full responsibility.
Austin, who is in recovery still, told members of the House Armed Services Committee that he and his staff did the right thing in transferring the duties from himself to the Deputy Defense Secretary. He added that he did not communicate that action to the president or senior leaders very well. Austin was admitted to the hospital for treatment for prostate cancer last December. He went back in January due to complications from the initial treatment. Another incident of aircraft equipment failing causes a Europe-bound jet to make an emergency landing just a couple of hours into the trip. An American Airlines jet with a cracked windshield was forced to land in Boston last night. Now, the overnight flight out of New York headed to Spain and was a little more than 2 hours into the trip when pilots reported a cracked windshield there. The flight landed safely and was taken out for service inspection. Angry passengers were put up in hotels until their scheduled flights leave today. Now, this is the latest incident that is raising concerns about aircraft safety after January's emergency landing of a Boeing jet. In that incident, a door panel of an Alaska Airlines jet blew off mid-flight. A New York City subway conductor has been hospitalized after his neck was slashed in a random attack Thursday morning. The victim had his head out of the subway car window when an unknown assailant cut his neck. The attack occurred on the train line at the Rockaway Avenue station in Brooklyn. Police are still searching for the suspect. And some good news for Anheuser-Busch. The beer maker has reached a tentative deal with the Teamster Union to avoid a strike. The agreement must still be voted on by the union's 5,000 members, and it provides a raise for workers, an increase in pension benefits, and more vacation time. The last strike the company faced was in 1976. Electric vehicle fires are far hotter than internal combustion engine fires. Now, they produce toxic chemical gases that threaten to electrocute anyone nearby, and they may burn for hours, even days. At a House hearing Thursday, Fire Chief Dan Muncy from San Bernardino, California, expressed concern for firefighter safety.
You'll see in this video here shortly that they're using a fire blanket. The fire blanket is used to either suppress the fire. It's not putting the fire out, but it's controlling the fire and the gases to prevent spread. These blankets cost between $3,000 to $5,000. What you see here is a single-family residence in the Denver metro area. The firefighters had a garage. The first screen showed gases and smoke that under pressurized environment. They now have to remove the car using specialized equipment. The blanket's in the firefighter's hand. While the fire looks controlled, it is not. There's still thermal runaway of that battery, and it can ignite at any time. This blanket is used to keep that fire under check. They are now going to have to tow this vehicle to a tow yard. When they arrive at a tow yard, they're going to do things such as digging a pit, filling it with water, and immersing this vehicle, or working to isolate that battery. This car must be kept separate from humans and other cars so it doesn't ignite or cause human health.
Muncy says EV fires are not common. He's only seen a couple of them in his county, despite nearly 200,000 calls per year. Now, it's the future he's worried about as governments push industry towards electrification. There's currently no uniform guidance on how to fight EV fires, and people don't fully understand the fires themselves because the technology is just so new. When we come back, President Biden is taking action to protect Americans' personal data. A new executive order seeks to prevent hostile nations like China from getting access to Americans' biometrics, finances, and more.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen Yun.
Did you know the government can essentially rob you in plain sight? Former Fed Chair Alan Greenspan warned, deficit spending is simply a scheme for the confiscation of wealth. But he added, gold stands in the way of this insidious process. Birch Gold Group has helped thousands of Americans diversify their IRA or 401k into gold. To get a free info kit from Birch Gold, text PREPARE to 989898. Again, text PREPARE to 989898 right now.
The biggest investigation in FBI history.
There are more than 1,100 arrests.
I sacrificed my dream job to share this information with the American people.
Those involved must be held accountable.
He's an innocent man.
It's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is.
What was the process of actually putting this all together?
Many, many hours of finding the right camera angles and watching it. The first trouble started just after 1 o'clock.
45 pages, here it is right here. Donald Trump has been indicted.
Somber day for the country.
This all happened before President Trump's speech was over.
The founder of the Oath Keepers militia group is headed to prison for more than 18 years.
His lawyers didn't have this video. The video we're watching right now, his own lawyers did not have. There was a big question of what did the people do who actually did enter the building.
This is where we picked it up with the security footage that is new. At this point, the story dramatically changes.
The New Jersey man who assaulted a Capitol police officer on January 6th has been sentenced.
So this was withheld.
This was not shown to the defense.
That could be considered exculpatory evidence. This doesn't seem like what a lot of the media is showing.
It's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is. What we're after is the truth.
Welcome back. An Iranian opposition group says Iranian women are the hope for democratic change. NTD's France correspondent David Vivez attended a rally supporting these dissidents. It looks like we didn't have any volume on that, but we have new news here, a break for new car buyers, and President Biden unveils an executive order that stops the transfer of Americans' personal data to China and other countries of concern. Here's NTD's Don Ma with today's business brief.
Thanks, Jack. The Biden administration is cracking down on U.S. data being shared with what it's calling countries of concern, and that includes China and Russia. The administration unveiled a new executive order that aims to protect Americans' personal data. Right now, buying data through data brokers is legal in the U.S., and the administration is trying to fill this national security gap. And the order will curb data brokers and others from bulk transferring Americans' geolocation, health, financial, and more information to specific countries of concern, which includes, first of all, China and Russia, Iran, as well as North Korea and Venezuela. Officials said that data brokers who know the information will end up in these countries will be banned. And certain types of data, including corporate payroll and compliance, are exempt. Now, cloud service, employment, and investment agreements would also be allowed, but are subject to security requirements. Meanwhile, drivers in the market for a new ride could finally get some relief as car inventory has gone up and prices have come down. Data shows the average cost of a new vehicle in January fell 1.2% from a year earlier. Now, used car prices drop more than double of that. So prices hiked in 2020 during the pandemic, mostly because of a shortage of chips for new cars, which surged demand for used cars. Cox Automotive reports that American dealerships had more than 2.6 million new cars, trucks, and SUVs on their lots in January. And compare that to just 1.7 million compared to a year prior. Even though that's a fraction of pre-pandemic numbers, analysts and dealers are predicting this will be the most affordable year in the past 5 for a new car or truck. And as well, there will be more discounts and incentives as well to buy. Back to you, Jack.
Thank you, Don. And now you're up to date. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Jack Bradley. I'll see you next time.